Hello, ladies and gentlemen. It's time for Hillary Does Gilbert Godfrey. Or rather, Gilbert Godfrey reads you some godforsaken piece of shit romance novel. Today's romance novel is Devil in a Kilt by Sue Ellen Wellfounder. This particular romance novel reading request, not for the book, but rather just for the reading, comes from the Straggle tag. Let's start off, shall we? Driven by urges more powerful than he'd ever known, he swept her into his arms and carried her to the bed. Without breaking their kiss, he used his shoulder to shove aside the bed curtains and eased her down, careful not to crush her beneath his weight. For a long moment, he remained poised atop her, fair, drowning in the honeyed nectar of her mouth, seared by the heat of her body, and consumed by his burning need to possess her. Their kiss became fevered, their very breath mingling as one, until it seemed he'd lose his soul in taste, feel, and scent of her, because everyone knows that vaginas smell damn good. And might the saints help him, he wanted to. Like a desperate man, too long starved of sustenance, he ravaged her lips, slaking his lust, his hunger, as one possessed. He cried out in protest. She cried out in protest, when finally he pulled away. "Cease," she whispered, her soft plea going straight under his skin, gorging another hole in his defenses. "That sounds painful. And that's not good. Anyway, I shall kiss you many times over this night, my lady," Duncan said, smoothing his hands over the well-rounded globes of her breasts, reveling in the glory of them. "But first, I shall give you the same pleasure you have given me. And this time, my hands shall do the roaming, I who explore. You shall lie back and allow me." She seemed to melt, to soften upon his spoken intent, staring at him from eyes no longer a dull brown, but now a rich molten amber. She offered herself to him. Her thighs were still slightly pressed together, and she said not a word, but Duncan knew. He'd had but to take, and she would give, because everyone knows that Duncan is the authority on vaginas. His arousal at the sight she made was so temptingly displayed beneath him, and her willingness to accept his need made him forget all else. He pushed up to sit, straddling her thighs, and then started down on her, devouring her with his gaze. Never had a woman been better suited for a man's andor. Never had a woman fired his passion more. Just like an oven. Never, ever had he felt more helpless, more victim to the pulsing heat at his fevered loins. There's gotta be something wrong with this guy, I'm telling you. Half crazed with wanting and the need to go slow, Duncan brought his fingers to his lips and licked the middle finger of each hand, thoroughly wetting the ends of each. As she watched him, her sweet lips parting with growing desire. Duncan touched. There's lots of touching going on here. The moistened fingers to the hardened tips of her breasts. A sharp cry burst out from her lips at the contact. Pleasured beyond measure, Duncan used the dampened tips of his middle finger to lubricate her nipples with slow little circles. Idly he toyed with them, plucking gently or simply grazing the tip of one finger back and forth over the taunt peak until his wife's hips lifted off the bed. Her woman's mound, instinctively seeking the same pleasure he showered upon her aroused breasts. Her hips began moving gently in a rocking motion, and consciously or unconsciously her thighs parted. When they opened wide enough for him to see Oliver, the very last dredges of his ridiculous vow of abstinence flew, scattered to the four winds, swept up, away, thoroughly, as if he'd tossed them with full force into a ragged summer gale. They went and went and went and went and went and went and went, reminding me much of the leaves in the scene where John Smith tells Pocahontas about the colors of the wind. I don't think that's what it's supposed to remind me of, but that's what it does. And deep within, a deep groan started in his very bones. Duncan realized he was lost. Naught would keep him from having her. Not now. Not with her sweetness spread open so inviting to him. She was his wife. He had already taken her virginity. Why should he deny himself pleasure? Or her? Didn't she seem to crave his attention? To abstain was nonsense, and would serve no one. Even though she said a couple of pages before, which I didn't read to you, that she was not even interested in kissing this man. Now all of a sudden, some fevered hot kisses and touching her boobs, and oh man, she wants it now. Oh, the magic of the man, his magical penis. Yeah, that's not good. But that does kind of give you an idea of what's going on in this book. I don't really know much. I didn't actually read it. Maybe at some point I'll review it, and I probably will read some more fun gems from this book. There are a lot of them. But basically, It's about this guy who's the leader of a rival clan, and the lovely Lynette has to marry him. And he's bartered by her father, and fathers in romance novels either seem to be dead, broke, or they somehow have to trade their daughters for some monetary compensation. And so this shit happens all the time. And of course, Lynette is not interested in Duncan at all. Duncan has no feelings or sense of emotion. But clearly he wants to get in her pants, or does at some point, and make some kind of vow of abstinence after he consummates the marriage, or maybe he takes her virginity before, I have no idea. But it's ridiculous, and of course she ends up falling for him. And everything's happy, and he learns how to feel, because that's how relationship works in romance land. Thanks for watching, and as always, this is Oddevenstar saying over and out.